Greetings gastronauts, this is Keith Cooks. I'm Keith, and today I'm going to show you how to do another vegan recipe. Vegan ravioli with marinated tofu and spinach and a tomato sauce. So I'm dedicating this to Dominic Richardson and his girlfriend, who has recently become vegetarian, possibly vegan, and he'd asked me to do some tofu recipes. There will be more, be warned. And also for my friend in Madrid, Ana, hola guapa, who's trying a vegan diet for health reasons. Yeah. So tofu is a sort of compressed thing made from soybeans, and it tastes of absolutely nothing, but what it does do is soak up flavour like a sponge. So you do need to add something to it. You can't just have it raw unless you like really bland food, and I don't. So for this recipe I'm doing a vegan version of your standard Italian ragu bolognese ravioli, and it's dead simple and dead tasty actually, so let's do it. So tofu is notorious for having no flavour whatsoever, so what I'm going to do is marinate it for a couple of hours before we use it. So I've got a block of tofu that's about 400 grams, and I'll probably use about half of that. I've got 3 tablespoons of rapeseed oil or olive oil, a tablespoon of white wine vinegar, a tablespoon of soy sauce, the juice of half a lemon, 2 cloves of garlic and a teaspoon of salt, and a sprig of oregano. If you haven't got fresh, obviously you can use dried, probably about a teaspoon. So what we need to do is mince the garlic, get the juice out of half that lemon, and chop up the oregano. So whisk all the ingredients together. Set that on one side, and let's chop up the tofu. Now some recipes say that you should press the tofu to remove liquid from it, but actually this is pretty firm, and I think that'll do as it is. Tofu comes in a range of textures or firmnesses, from what's called silken, which is pretty sloppy, right up to construction grade that you can build houses out of. So I'm going to put that in a plastic bag, pour on the marinade and leave it to soak up the flavour for a couple of hours. So we're going to make the pasta, and it's exactly the same recipe that you would use for normal pasta, but to veganise it you leave out the eggs. That's it. Amazing. I've got 300 grams of pasta flour, 180 ml of water, a tablespoon of rapeseed oil or olive oil, 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric and half a teaspoon of salt. The reason for the turmeric is just colouring, really, to make it a little bit yellowy like proper egg pasta. So first thing to do, just mix all that together. And it's going to be pretty stiff, which is why Italian mamas all have forearms like Popeye. Okay, now I'm going to tip this out onto the worktop, and you've got to knead it for for at least 10 minutes till it's become silky and smooth. And at this point you might think that'll never happen, but it will if you persevere. So I'm just doing the same kind of kneading that I would do for bread dough, which is to stretch it, fold it into the 3, twist it through 90 degrees and repeat the process. That's about what we need. It does actually feel quite silky, and yeah. So I'm going to wrap that in plastic film and let it rest for half an hour. Right, we're ready to start assembling the ravioli. So I'm just going to begin with half the dough. We want a bit of flour on the worktop, and unless you've got a pasta machine, you lucky thing, which will make this really easy. But I haven't got a pasta machine at the moment, so I'm going to roll it by hand. And yeah, basically you want to get it as thin as you can, 1 or 2 millimeters really. That's what, 1/8 of an inch, not very much. That's nice and thin. So now I'm just going to cut some circles, discs, using a pastry cutter. You can make your ravioli any shape you want really. So I'm going to start building my ravioli, and I'm just going to place a spinach leaf on each one. And we just pop a cube of the lovely tofu. on each one. Then moisten the edge with water and take another disc and just press it down all around to make a good seal. And lift up the edges and then pop that on some kitchen paper to dry out. And they need to sort of dry out, not totally dry out, but just dry for about an hour. So I'm going to make a nice simple tomato sauce to go with the ravioli. So I've got a carton of passata, that's 500 grams, actually it's not full, there's about 300 grams in there. A medium onion, 3 cloves of garlic, half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and a teaspoon of dried basil, also a bit of fresh basil. If you've got, this is all we've got left, boo. If you've got lots of fresh basil, you'd probably want about a handful. Usual drill, top and tail the onion and peel it. Then slice it and chop the slices into bits. Now we want to peel the garlic and mince it. Just whack it in the crusher. I've got a good glug of rapeseed oil, or you could use olive oil, heating on medium heat. And I'm just going to soften the onions and garlic. Now I'll add the passata. If you don't have any of this, you can use a can of tomatoes just as well, because they're going to get pureed in the end anyway. And the pepper and basil. And stir that all together and let it simmer for a few minutes. Let's have a little taste. Yeah, that is actually quite bitter, as tomatoes sometimes can be. So what we need to do is just add about 1/4 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, and that should hopefully neutralise the acidity. Yeah, that's better. And now it needs a pinch of salt, and actually half a teaspoon of sugar. So it's all about balancing your flavours with this sauce. So what I'll do is whack that in the blender and turn it into a nice smooth sauce. So here's the blended sauce, and I'm going to pass it through a fine sieve. You'll need to use the back of a big spoon to force it through, and you'll be left with a kind of pulp inside, which is no good to anybody, so throw that away. But don't forget to scrape the good stuff off the back side of the sieve. Okay, time to put it all together. So I'm heating up the tomato sauce. I've got my ravioli, 7 of them. I actually had enough to make about 16, and I was aiming to make 8 today, but I broke one. Anyway, and a big pan of water with some oil added and some salt. And we're waiting for that to come to a nice rolling boil. Okay, water's boiling, so let's pop in the ravis. And these need to cook for 3 minutes. Right, 4 ravioli and a dribble of tomato sauce. Okay, let's give it a try. Well, do you know what? That's actually pretty good. If you didn't know that was tofu, you might actually enjoy it. It's lovely. And that's that. Hope you enjoyed it. Now please share it with all your friends on social media. Subscribe to this channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and don't forget the amazing website that has all the details of all the recipes. And thank you for watching. Come back soon.